NFL Week 3 is here, IBT family, and we want to make sure that you are setting the best lineup as possible. Today, we have you covered with our Week 3 start sits and sleepers. So kick back, enjoy the show, and let's ride on this beautiful feel-good Friday.
Cause I've been in tune, out of touch, coming off the bench, trying to shake the funk, check your stat line, see who's up, that over, under, hit too clutch.
And I'm trying to avoid getting carried away with the jet sweep, sleeping on a trick play, predicting all of my moves like they seen every play. So I'm running it back, head down, get out of my way, and it's for the law with only one thing to do. I guess I'll say a prayer and put it all on the line for you. What they don't know, something they haven't seen. I find a gap on the screen and hit them right in between. Yeah, I got it, and I got it. Just one thing to say, yeah, what they don't know, something they haven't seen. I'm off that mean Joe Green, it got me fading between. Yeah, I got it, and I got it. In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
All right. It is Feel Good Friday, September 22nd, 2023. The In Between Fantasy Football Podcast is back with you and grateful to be here on such a beautiful afternoon. I am Seth Woolcock, and I am joined by a scholar, a gentleman, and yes, a Houston Texans fan, Eric Romoff. Eric, how are we doing today, my friend? What's new in your world?
Man, I am generally doing well. I am not so happy with the news on the Texans front. Looks like another week without Petrie, our standout safety, and we're probably going to be looking at better than a month or maybe two without Derek Stingley. So Texans news is bleak, but hey, that's life as a Texans fan. The rest of the NFL and fantasy football in week 3 is absolutely a blast.
I'm excited you are here with us today because we are like a baked potato and we are fucking loaded on this afternoon. We're going to do our Thursday night football recap here in just a second. And then in a few minutes, we're also going to have Herms joining us for some start sit questions. Can't wait to see Herms and his smiling face and all the goodness he has to offer the IBT family today. And then in about 30 or so minutes, we're going to be joined by Chuck Bass. This guy is a ball of energy, a complete ball of energy. So I'm excited to talk with Chuck here in a little bit as well. And then we also have the IBT family joining us tonight here as well, Eric, and very excited to have everyone in. And we can't thank them enough for their support. If you are new, we are happy that the YouTube algorithm brought you here. Hit that subscribe button for all the content we have coming your way this season. And also, we don't plug it much, but check out the website. We are firing on all cylinders over there. We have about 9 or 10 written pieces coming out each and every week, Eric. So, but between you and I and the rest of the team, we've been pretty busy, I'd say.
Oh, to say the least, right? Like absolutely jumping in with both feet now that the season's here. You know, it felt like the offseason was busy as we're ramping up to kickoff, and we had no idea, right? The content dial has been turned all the way to 11, and
11,
as
baby.
always, it is as good as you can find out there, right? Like the analysis is spot on, but everything out there on the website is it's a fun read, right? It's engaging. It's not a big, numbers dump. It's not like a math quiz.
Yeah.
I love reading the stuff we're pushing out on the website.
I appreciate that, Eric. Let's go ahead. Let's jump into the first segment of the afternoon and look at what was a pretty fun Thursday night football game, closer than many thought it would be, here in some front and center.
Sometimes taking that first step out the door is the hardest thing to do. Give it a chance, you'll be begging for more. Save the spot just for you. We're all somewhere in between. I thought you'd come to the place we can have some fun. Ain't gotta worry about knowing not what it means. You can come and give me another, cause the night is young. At least I so thought.
This just in. Breaking news. Front and center.
All right. So it was the 49ers, who come out on top on this Thursday night affair. 441 yards for the Niners versus just 150 for the Giants. And the 49ers, they really controlled this one. It was closer than it should have been for a while. Had the ball for over 39 minutes of possession time here. And just in general, before we jump into the winners and losers and look at the fancy aspect of it, what do you think of this game from a bettor's angle or just from a fan perspective, Eric? I feel like we haven't got the best Thursday night slate so far this season.
Oh, how easily we forget, right? Just a week ago, we got a barn burner with Philadelphia and Minnesota. And I think we kicked off that next Friday show talking about how that is the exception and not the rule, right? Usually these Thursday games are a little bit closer to booty. And this one did not disappoint, right? I think at one point the Giants had a field goal lead, and they were able to get San Francisco into some long third downs pretty routinely in that first quarter. And then San Francisco just converted all of them and put up like 200 yards and just completely ran away with this one, right? So a little bit interesting, to start the first quarter, but ultimately this was a laugher when it was all said and done.
Yeah, unfortunately. Feel bad for the Giants fans, but hey man, you get to wake up in probably New Jersey or New York somewhere. So be thankful, Giants fans. I see we got Ray in the chat already. Ray, we'll get to your questions here in just a couple minutes when we get into our next segment. Let's look at the fantasy aspect from this. Third straight game from Christian McCaffrey with 22 plus PPR points. He's been as good as advertised here. I don't think there's anything else to say on that front, Eric. But we did see some action out of the 49ers pass catchers. No Brandon Ayuk suiting up here. But Deebo Samuel looked like Deebo Samuel, 6 for 129 and 1. Exited with a rib injury, came back into the game, caught a really nice touchdown. And then George Kittle, man, it was like, when Ayuk's away, Kittle will play here. 7 for 90 from George Kittle. I think like that's what George Kittle is at this point, Eric. Like he's a great play if we don't have a Deebo or a CMC or an Ayuk out there. But after that, I don't think he has much value when it doesn't come to just streaming a tight end.
To a degree, right? He certainly got a better chance at his ceiling games when one of those key pieces is out, and obviously his floor is incrementally higher, right? Like there aren't a whole lot of guys, outside of the top 3 at the position that are going to catch 7 balls on any given week.
That's a good
right?
point.
So,
yeah.
With that, like he's kind of like he's like a plus version of the tight end middle class. When this San Francisco team is at full strength, right? Like his touchdown upside is a little bit higher than that, those kind of pedestrian guys. And, they like to go to him in these high leverage situations, right? In the red zone, on third down. So, at the end of the day, he's not going to be your 3 for 30 type. But if you get a guy that's consistently, 5 for 50 as his median point, like that's a pretty solid outing in today's tight end world.
Yeah, I think I would be trying to capitalize. Like I honestly, if anyone wanted to pay me a decent position player for George Kittle right now after that performance, I'd be willing to make that swap and then try to grab me a Jake Ferguson, a Hayden Hurst, Hunter Henry off the waiver wire. Let's look at Brock Purdy here, man. Easiest bet in the world right now is Brock Purdy over 1.5 touchdowns every game. It seems like he's hitting this. It's going to be minus money pretty soon, I feel like. 25 or 37 for Purdy, 310 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, this guy's on pace for over 30 touchdowns this season. He looks better than I think a lot of people gave him credit coming into the season, especially off that gruesome elbow surgery.
Yeah, I think that is the point to underscore your ladder, right? And the Amazon team was kind enough to provide us a disgusting diagram of how his elbow repair surgery went. That's not exactly what I was looking for with my Thursday night football, but it is interesting, right? It sounds like they took a pretty innovative approach, and it's got him back, throwing much faster than we typically see guys, coming back from Tommy John's with in terms of MLB pitchers, right? So, I mean, credit to them. They leaned on some groundbreaking technology to get him on the field faster, and he looks to be the guy that we saw down the stretch run last year, right? Like he's never going to be the reason why they win, but certainly in such a sophisticated offensive system, if you have a guy that understands it, that knows where those windows are going to be, and knows where his players are going to be, and has the timing figured out, like that is very, very effective, right? I don't know if I would go as far to say that, over 1.5 touchdowns every week is a lock, right?
Dude, it's
Down
pretty
rate,
close.
I mean, his touchdown rate it's very low, right? Like 4% is right around league average. They don't throw enough to where I would say lock it in at over 1.5. But in terms of his median scoring projection, he'll be right there, right? I don't think it's mailbox money yet, but it'll be a pretty comfy bet in most games.
Fair enough. All right. Just to touch on the Giants here, dog shit performance. I mean, oh man, this franchise looked so good 6-7 months ago when we were riding the high going in the playoffs after beating the Vikings, and it's just been a downhill turn ever since. I think I'm done rostering New York Giants players outside of Danny Dimes, Darren Waller, and Saquon Barkley. And I guess if you need running back depth or if you have Barkley, Matt Breida. But really outside of that, like if you listen to me on Isaiah Hodgins this summer, I apologize. I'm sorry about it. That was a terrible call. I don't think we can trust any of these pass catchers at this point. It's just a roulette wheel here, Eric.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that was kind of the advice on Isaiah Hodgins anyways, right? It was like someone that you can stash on the backside of your bench that, maybe this offense, gets humming and he has a big role in it. And, while the productivity hasn't really been there yet for him, I mean, he's on the field a fair amount, right? Like,
he is the X. There's no doubt about it.
It's kind of a weird comp to make, but I see a lot of Kansas City in the fantasy outlook for this team, right?
Yeah.
Like like the quarterback's interesting, certainly more interesting for Mahomes. The tight end is going to be where most people get their Giants exposure, as well as the running back. And in the wide receivers, it's just going to be spinning the wheel, right? Like a couple of guys in the case of the Giants, Slayton and Hodgins are on the field a ton, but they don't throw to the wide receiver very often. And then just like a mishmash of random guys getting like 5 to 12 routes every single week, right? Paris Campbell, Jalen Hyatt. We saw Wan'Dale Robinson come back last week, right? So like those situations are very difficult to navigate from a fantasy perspective. But if you're in a deep bench league, if you rostered him and there's not an appealing ad to go out there, I don't think you necessarily have to cut bait on an Isaiah Hodgins yet. But I certainly am not putting him in the starting lineup with any confidence.
Okay, yeah, I've cut bait and I had him everywhere because I feel like there are a little bit more appealing options. But you are 100% right. Like if this offense gets going, it could be through Hodgins. So guys, keep giving us your questions here, and let's go ahead and get into our next segment here. We're gonna bring in a special guest to do some start sits with you in matchup management.
Who you got? Matchup management. Who's it gonna be?
Who's it going to be? We're going to tell you that here today. And ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by someone from the great state of Maryland. He's a fantasy football analyst from Draft Sharks, and he's a fucking weapon at karaoke, my friends. Guys, give it up for Herms. How we doing today, Herms?
I'm chilling, man. It's we're in the thick of this already. I am like surprised at how quickly time passes, but it's football. We're here. We're doing it.
How about it, man? I feel like a couple weeks ago, we're just like, oh, it's going to be a great season. And then we've seen so much shit go down so quickly here in a matter of 2 weeks. It's unreal.
Dude, flying by. Some ways good, some ways bad, because injuries suck. Unfortunately, we've seen a lot of those. So I imagine that we're going to have a very long list of difficult starts and sits, but if it helps to know, even your industry people are struggling with their teams too. Listeners.
Yes.
So
yes, absolutely there, Herms. We appreciate you joining us, man. Looks like we got some love in the chat for Herms already from Toronto. Dave, what's up, Dave? Thanks for joining us, Mr. Scampers. Oh, he's in the morning still. He's over there on the West Coast. Lucky you, Mr. Scampers. Good to see you. We got Ray still in the chat hanging out. Ricky. thank you guys all for tuning in tonight. We're going to give you guys the best start sit advice we can. Cause like Herm said, it might be kind of gross. Some of the shit coming out of our mouth today. Writing my column yesterday felt a little bit weird. Just some of the starts and the sits I was recommending, having to take shots at guys like Eric's all-in picks, Justin Fields. I've been taking the shots. Here's a trade question from Ray to start us out here. Trade Barkley, Christian Watson, Kareem Hunt, and Christian Kirk for Joe Mixon, Kenneth Walker, and Mike Evans. Oh man, that is a big price we're paying. But Eric, I know you're kind of reading over this. A lot to take in here. Any initial reads?
Not really, honestly. So I generally don't like these massive trades, right? Like,
yeah.
If you're talking about the dynasty context, fine. But overall, I think this one probably comes out pretty close to a wash. I'm not as concerned about Barkley for the duration of the season as some people are. I definitely like trying to sell and take advantage of the Kareem Hunt hype because people are acting like he's going to be the starter and he is probably going to be the third wheel in this backfield. But the guys that you're getting in return are incremental upgrades to some of the pieces that you're letting out the door, right? So overall, I think you're probably getting the better side of this one with the Mixon, Walker, Evans side, but I don't know how much it moves the needle for you.
I almost think I would rather kind of trade these pieces off incrementally, Herms, if that makes sense. Like I feel like he is selling Barkley at his low and Christian Watson at his low. Those are guys who could be game wreckers if they come back healthy. Are you willing to make this move if you're Ray?
Based off of the running backs on the bench with Montgomery, Pierce, and all that, like, yeah, honestly, like, I don't love it either. I get where you're coming from, Seth. Like, in a perfect world, you could package these things together separately and just try and get it done that way. But as somebody who is also struggling to fill a lineup spot with that David Montgomery, you can't really make a lot of economic choices at this point. All right, we're not living in that world. Like that's the tough part. So I get it. It's not my favorite thing in the world, but at the same time, if you can't set a good lineup and you can't win, then you don't want to rack up too many L's early in the season. Like statistically speaking, make the fantasy playoffs. Like the better your record is early, the more insulated you are from missing out on the playoffs later. Like this is just the game that we play. So I get it.
I think it does suck. And I imagine if you have this team, you could be 1-1, 0-2 at this point. So you need to make the move, and you are getting 2 running back twos, like solid RB2s in return. So not the worst trade ever there, Ray. Appreciate the advice there from Herms. We got Ricky here saying he needs us to pick 3 of Terry McLaurin, Tyler Lockett, Josh Reynolds, and Jacoby Myers. Ooh, Herms, how do you feel about this one? I have a lot of love for Josh Reynolds, but he's been dealing with an injury all week long, as well as ASRB over there for the Lions.
Oh, that makes me so sad, especially because once upon a time I was convinced that Josh Reynolds was going to be like really good, but that's beside the point and not really part of the question. Now, I mean, dude, McLaurin, you got to throw him out there. Lockett, you got to throw him out there. So it kind of just really comes down to Reynolds or Myers. And Seth, I hate to do this, but you know our boys over there in Pittsburgh.
Oh yeah,
are not
Lurs hate.
Look, like the front 7 is very scary. Okay, like like if you can get the ball out, good for you. Okay, like Garoppolo, best of luck. Trying to stay on your feet this weekend. But if the ball actually does leave your hands, beating the secondary is not the most difficult thing in the world to do. So there's part of me that's like, all right, well, if Jacoby Myers is ready to go, then wheels up for that guy. So
that's how I feel.
It's a little bit of Steelers fan self-loathing that goes into that, and then also the fact that Josh Reynolds is a little bit banged up. So I think I'm just going to stick with McLaurin, Lockett, and Myers.
Yeah, I'm with you here, man. Until Joey Porter Jr. gets really up to speed and we can trust him in that secondary, I'm with you. I do love Josh Reynolds. Eric, would you be sitting Reynolds with Herms and I in this one?
I would be sitting Reynolds with
Okay.
both you and Herms in this one. And I think it's important to qualify. Like we have plenty of Josh Reynolds love on the IBT podcast,
Yes,
right?
sir.
Like
Yes, sir.
Seth's going to talk about it later, but he absolutely mashed Josh Reynolds as his Sure Thing Sleeper of the Week last week. I actually used to work with Josh Reynolds' auntie. Shout out Chrissy if you happen to be watching right now.
Okay.
But
Okay.
this week, Josh Reynolds specifically has a horrendous matchup. He's going to be lining up against AJ Terrell on the vast majority of his snaps. And AJ Terrell kind of looks like the 2021 version of himself that got all pro nods. He's allowing like a 46% catch rate. So very quickly, this Atlanta defense is looking like one that funnels a lot of the pass game into the center of the field again. And that's just not where Reynolds plays.
Okay. I like it, man. I like it. We got Katie saying, nice crew you got here today, boys. Appreciate you, Katie. And then Mr. Scampers with a question for us. Half PPR. He needs to. Samaje Perine at Miami. Gabe Davis against the Washington football team. I love the WFT in there. And then Christian Kirk versus Houston. Do you have an initial lean here, Herms? Is there anything that sticks out to you?
I can't get behind putting Samaje Perine in lineups.
Yes.
There's one team, no, two teams of mine specifically, where like it'd be super cool if he was good right now because I could really use the help.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it just hasn't really been like the first game they gave him a pretty decent amount of touches, but then last week he kind of just like disappeared a little bit. And at this point, like this Broncos offense is just kind of weird. And also that Miami defense is like sneaky good. So like even if they did mix in a good amount of Javonte Williams and Perine, I don't know how that's gonna go, man. So yeah, I mean Christian Kirk, just go for it. Whatever. Week 1 was probably fluky. Like when you get that many targets last week, it just announces to everybody, hey, he's back. So go for that. But between Perine and Gabe Davis, like I don't know, the Commanders secondary is also not very good.
I understand. Got torched by Russ last weekend. Yeah.
So like trusting a guy like Gabe Davis is a little bit ballsy, but if you're gonna do it, it's in situations like this. So I'd rather go with the boom bust surprise than what's likely going to be a whimper and a disappointment from Perine.
4 to 5 points, maybe he gets in the end zone, but yeah, I'm with you. Gabe Davis, I think, can exploit this Washington secondary. We just saw Russell Wilson hit a couple crazy deep shots in week 2, and Christian Kirk. Eric, your boys are banged up in the secondary. I think they're gonna have a great day. They're gonna make right on what happened last weekend in Kansas City. Your thoughts on this one from Mr. Scampers?
Yeah, so because of those injuries in the Texans secondary, Christian Kirk will see the vast majority of his routes run against Grayland Arnold. If you don't know that name, you are in good company because he hasn't really done anything of note in the NFL, right? So like his matchup is very, very favorable for Kirk. I mean, look, with Davis, like you're always going to be rolling the dice on a 1 catch for 7-yard outing or a 5 catch for 180-yard and 2 touchdown outing, right? So like I think those two paired together specifically actually works out pretty well because I think you can project a pretty solid volume for Kirk, and then you can sort of absorb that variance that Davis brings.
All right. And here we got a question from Brandy saying trade Etienne, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Jerome Ford for Stephon Diggs and Josh Jacobs. No way. No way am I doing this. Josh Jacobs looks like a shell of himself right now. Etienne's going to have a better days ahead starting here, I think, in Houston this week as well. ASRB will get healthy, and you got an RB2 and Ford. Any disagreements from you, gentlemen?
Whenever I turn off my camera on StreamYard, there's supposed to be like a little audio picture card of a sign that just says no. That's what I was trying to do. A nice visual effect. Please, no. I get where maybe the idea spawned from.
Yeah, for sure.
Sure, like not gonna just like throw a ton of water on it and be like, what are you doing?
Diggs might be the best player in this trade, so I get that.
Yeah, so like, and maybe Jacobs bounces back. But at this point, Etienne, like, It's the fact that it's like Etienne Amon-Ra, like already so good, but then on top of that, the gift that has been given to you in the form of Jerome Ford. Do not spoil the gift from the universe that is Jerome Ford for something like this.
Yes.
I can't get there.
I'm Eric. I think you're with us as well.
Yeah. Just categorically, I don't like this trade for the outcome, but also the context that's missing here. Randy, you might be concerned about the Kareem Hunt signing, and that's certainly your prerogative. I promise you that there are people in your league who are not as worried about it as you are, and you can get more sending Ford out the door than as kind of a throw-in piece on sort of a net neutral deal.
Okay. Here we got another one from Mr. Scampers. O'Connell rolled out Akers for this week. PPR guillotine. Alexander Madison versus the Chargers. Hollywood Brown versus Dallas. I actually like Hollywood. I think he's going to get a lot of junk time. We just saw the Diggs go down to a torn ACL yesterday in practice. Really sad to see that. So I think there's going to be some question marks in Dallas' secondary. I think Joshua Dobbs is running for his life in this one, but I think he could hit Hollywood. I think Hollywood is safer here. However, this might be the last smash spot for Alexander Madison, Eric.
It very well might be. And I actually sounds like I have kind of the opposite take. I think Alexander Madison is probably the safer play of the two here, right? At least in so much as Akers isn't sniffing around and chipping away into that opportunity
That's
share,
a good point.
Which is very much so the only thing of value that Alexander Madison has to offer, right? Like, he has almost an 80% opportunity share, which is just bananas in today's NFL. So in a matchup that is easily one of, if not the most favorable matchup to opposing running backs, the guy that's going to get the vast majority of the workload holds value, right? If this one ends up shooting out, maybe that chips away into the number of carries that he's going to get. But I think Madison's floor is probably the safest here. With Hollywood versus Dallas, right? Like there is a decent chance of some junk time production, but that can kind of go either way, right? That can be routed to Ertz, that can be routed to the outside to Wilson. So you're kind of rolling the dice there. And usually for these flex plays, especially in a guillotine league early in the season, I'm just trying to survive in advance, right? Like I want a guy that's got a safe floor.
Yeah. Herms, do you play in any guillotine leagues? And also your thought here on Madison versus Hollywood.
I play in one, and if it's the one that I think it is, then Scampers, I think you should definitely play Hollywood Brown because it's the riskier choice. And I would like to continue surviving. So I mean, I ended up in one like with Scampers is in it, so like there's a decent chance that this is a conflict of interest for me. But honestly, though, genuinely speaking, Matt Madison, for the reasons that were said, there's at least a somewhat of a guarantee of touches that are definitely going his way. Like now, granted, Hollywood Brown, credit where credit's due. So far, I think wide receiver 32, at least before Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, he's right in that 3 range. Yep.
So not bad considering the state of that Arizona offense. But yeah, in a situation like this where it's literally do or die, you just gotta go with the safety.
All right, yeah, maybe they'll feed him a little bit as well after bringing in Cam Akers and resting him this week. Trade Kyren Williams and Calvin Ridley for Stephon Diggs. Wow, this is tough. You're selling high, or I don't know if you're selling high. You're selling Kyren where he like you are upgrading. You are getting the best player in this trade by far. But Kyren Williams right now is a sit it and forget it RB1, and is it real or not? I don't know. Herms, your thoughts on Kyren Williams and shipping him and Ridley out?
I mean, I'm assuming this is redraft because this is the time of year that we're in. I do create some dynasty content, but when I'm thinking about start sets and stuff, like my brain's in redraft mode, okay? And when it comes to trades and stuff, my brain's in redraft mode, unless otherwise specified. So in that situation, no, do not do that. Because kind of like I was saying before about Jerome Ford, it's like you have been given a gift from the fantasy gods.
Oh, yeah. How
in
about
the form of Kyren Williams. You do not ruin this gift. Because honestly, think about it. Like Calvin Ridley and Stephon Diggs, within the same tier practically. So you're just exchanging like tier 1 or tier 2 receiver for a different tier 2 or tier 1 wide receiver, and hey, here's a free running back to go with it.
Right.
Like I can't get behind that.
Eric, your points. I think behind.
I don't know if that was on my end, but I was having a hard time hearing Seth.
Me too. We're good.
Herms,
All right, cool.
Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. For me on this deal, I am in lockstep with your analysis, right? Like, yes, Diggs is an incremental improvement to Ridley over the course of the season, right? I mean, there's going to be multiple times throughout the year where they're probably going to be, kind of flip-flopping ahead and behind each other in terms of where they finish week over week. And so for that, you're basically giving away Kyren Williams for nothing, right? For, an incremental advantage in, like, I don't know, 5 of the remaining 12 weeks or whatever it might be. So, that is a minuscule return. If you're worried about Kyren Williams, it's probably because of his size and whether or not he'll be able to maintain his workload over the course of the season. That's fine. Just go sell him by himself. And I promise you can get more than, 20 or so net points difference over the course of the season.
All right, I'm back. You guys got me.
Yeah, all right, cool.
Okay, here we go. I'll tell you what, folks. Xfinity is driving me crazy.
Dude, I was about to take this thing over.
Hey,
look at me. I am the captain now.
There we go. I appreciate it. A couple more questions here. We got, hey, guys, here. Don't even know what that name is. We're going to call you ASD. Appreciate you tuning in, man. Hey, guys, pick 2 wide receivers: Godwin, Jacoby Myers, McLaurin, Amari, Cooks. Oh, Lord.
Godwin, Cooper.
How do you feel about it, Eric? Are you also going Cooper?
I am also going Cooper, and I am also going Godwin. He's 1 spot ahead of Terry for me.
Okay. All right. And I know we have some other questions in there from Ray. Ray, if you can like shorten those down a little bit into like that would like I feel like help us out a little bit just moving forward here. He says his lineup right now for the week is Jalen Hurts, Chris Olave, Metcalf, Joshua Kelly, Gus Edwards, Hawkinson, Christian Kirk, Jake Moody. Got me 12 points, and probably Jaguars D over Eagles. Man, Jaguars D over Eagles this week. You do have Texans who are coming over here in the road game. But the Eagles defense has just been atrocious so far this season, Herms. The secondary does not look the same without CJ Gardner-Johnson back there.
It doesn't. And then also just some other injuries to that defense as well that really kind of bringing down the vibe, bringing down the quality. So, if it helps to know, I am starting the Jaguars defense in a lot of different leagues. That's how good I feel about that. And I'm sure at least in maybe 1 or 2 of those I had the option of the Eagles or something and just didn't even bother looking. So, like, just for context, if I'm going to do it, then you could do it. That's my attitude.
You might lose some points here, I think, if you play Jaguars D in garbage time. Like I think they could get up a little bit earlier on the Texans. Then we see some garbage time. CJ Stroud slinging it for another 50 or so. But Eric, I think you would take the defense against your home team as well.
You don't know me. I'm just kidding. You know me perfectly well. That's exactly what I would do. Shout out to my guy CJ Stroud.
Hell yeah.
Sitting there with whatever 90 plus pass attempts and no interceptions. But as I documented in a lengthy thread at the beginning of the season, that bell will chime for all rookie quarterbacks. They are far and away the more turnover prone players than any veteran out there, including Baker Mayfield. And usually when I'm making a defensive decision, I'm just trying to sniff out some turnovers. So Jacksonville has a greater chance of creating a turnover this week than Philadelphia does.
All right, here we got one from Carlin saying start Jake Ferguson, Taysom Hill, Cade Otton, or Dalton Kincaid at tight end this week. I think something we have to preface with this is Dalton Knox has not been practicing in full this week. I think if he's out, I think the upside lies with Kincaid. Jake Ferguson against the Cardinals is not a bad go either. And we heard earlier in the week from Simon, he's firing up Taysom Hill. I think we can expect probably 5 to 10 carries for Taysom Hill. Herms, do you have an initial lie here?
I think I would go with Kincaid because the fixed amount of touches kind of feels the safest of all of them. But the Taysom Hill thing is so tempting because, of course, the New Orleans Saints would be the team like, we're still waiting on Kamara to come back. Jamal Williams is out. Okay, what are we going to do with these running back touches and blah, blah, blah. I know. Instead of giving it to the rookie that we drafted and all of that stuff, why don't we just hand it to Taysom Hill? Because for I don't know. I rostered Alvin Kamara in my home league for many, many years. This is the first year I didn't keep him as a keeper. It's somebody else's problem now. But Taysom Hill ruins lives, okay? He comes out here, he vultures those touches right there in the red zone, right when you need them most, and it just happens. So, maybe, I think I'm tempted to go with Simon and just agree with the Taysom Hill thing because it's risky, but it also just makes so much sense.
For the second time this week, Eric, will you also back a Taysom Hill call out of left field here?
God, I feel it's necessary to have at least one person fading Taysom Hill on every single live stream across this great land. I think the argument that Simon made for it was perfectly cogent and very much so defendable. I think Herm's argument was spot on too, right? Like clearly the Saints are just like the captain of Team Chaos. So this is very much so well represented on their range of outcomes. But, for me, especially if Knox is going to be out, Kincaid is just such a clear choice above the rest of these. I would put Taysom too. But, Kincaid he's barely even playing in line as it is. So they're already treating him essentially like a big slot. And if he gets even incrementally more work with Dawson Knox out, he could be in line for a huge week. So Hill would be fun. If you feel like getting froggy and click that button, I'm not going to be mad at you, but I'll go Kincaid here.
Yeah, I think if I really give a fuck about this league, Carlin, I'm playing Kincaid. I think it's the smarter thing to do. Taysom Hill might be a little more fun, but it's also swing your nutsack over your shoulder type of shit right there as well. So Herms, I can't thank you enough for joining us here today. We're gonna get into some sure thing sleepers right around the corner. We have another guest lined up for you guys. We'll take some more questions if you have any for us. But Herms, we are gonna let you go. So tell us where we can find you and how we can best support you throughout the remainder of the season, my man.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. Glad that I made it for this one. You can follow me on Twitter at HermsNFL, and you can find all of my written work over at DraftSharks.com. I've got some weekly articles. I do a Dynasty Player Spotlight series. So, depending on what happens this Sunday or Monday, there will be somebody specifically that I talk about that's interesting, and then just all sorts of other stuff over there on the site. We got content for everybody in every kind of league, and it's awesome.
Hell yeah, man. Well, enjoy your Friday. Enjoy week number 3, my friend, and we'll catch you here soon. And everyone here on the YouTube channel, stay put, and let's get into some sure things, sleepers of the week.
It's the sure thing. Sleepers of the week.
This is your thing, sure thing, sleepers of the week. And this afternoon, we are joined by a newer friend of the In Between Fantasy Football podcast. He's a senior writer at This Guy Sucks. He's the host of Dynasty Hour. I met him during our live draft event a couple months ago. And let me just tell you, this guy's the fucking life of the party. Give it up for the man, the myth, the legend, Chuck Bass. What's up, my friend?
What's happening? I just ripped a double espresso and I got a cold brew. I'm going to try and give you guys everything that I have right now.
I appreciate it, man.
Ready.
Chuck, tell us a little bit about yourself. First time on the podcast. You're bringing the energy already, my man.
I'm putting on a good front because, guys, I am dying on the inside from this season. I'm getting smacked around like a rag doll, and it's been pretty fun, to be honest. I've definitely had more depressing. I don't know what it is, but just the way I think it's because it's happening to everybody. So I almost feel like we're all sharing this pain. I lost to Eric in our quarterback league by like less than a point, which if you know anything about that league, it's nearly impossible. The average margin of victory in that league is like 35 points. So it's that kind of year, but it's okay. The Bucks are 2-0. Met you guys at the Expo, so my average baseline has already been raised, and I'm ready to get into some sleepers.
Hell yeah, man. Before we get there, we do have a couple questions in the chat. If we can get to those real quick for you, get Chuck's opinion on them. In the Scott Fish Bowl, he needs two. Aaron Jones versus New Orleans. We know he's a little banged up. CEH versus Chicago. Pacheco's banged up there. And Taysom Hill, let's go, baby. Or Mac Jones and P. Ryan. So how are you feeling about this, Chuck? I feel like at Scott Fishbowl, you have the opportunity to play a quarterback. You probably should. Mac Jones hasn't been that bad, but it is the Jets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is hilarious. The Mac Jones slander just continues that he gets grouped in with these bunch of like, oh no's. I've liked what I've seen out of Mac. Now, the Jets is always going to make you make your stomach churn a little bit, but I think that's a good play. I think that, he's gone up against two pretty damn good defenses, and I think he's looked good. He's a little turnover prone right now, but that doesn't hurt you in Scott Fish Bowl. So I think that's a pretty easy one. I would rule the Aaron Jones one is really tough because we know what New Orleans has been, but we know what Aaron Jones means to that offense. I think I'm going to go with Taysom Hill. This is a Taysom Hill podcast, apparently. So I'm just going to ride the wave with you guys and take those tight end points to the dome.
Holy shit. All right. Wow. I would say if Aaron Jones is active for me, it is Aaron Jones. H.A. Dillon looked like dog shit last week, so I'm trying to avoid him, and I think Aaron Jones is a great play if he is ready to roll here. But
he's definitely the engine that makes that team go if he's playing. So if I'm putting my serious hat on for a second, yeah, definitely.
If not, I think it might be Taysom Hill. I don't really trust CEH or P. Ryan at this point, Eric. And you are going to get some potential bonus points from Taysom Hill being a quote-unquote tight end.
Yeah, the scoring system in Scott Fish Bowl specifically really buoys Taysom Hill to a point of consideration that he probably shouldn't be at. But definitely. I mean, he's there. For me, it's definitely Mac Jones, right? I'm actually in the position as an Anthony Richardson manager where I'm firing up Mac Jones this week, and it's fine, right? He leads the league in pass attempts per game, right? Like they're throwing a ton. I don't think it's unrealistic for him to put up a Dak-like stat line, 250-2 against them, coming up this weekend. And after that, I'll be conservative and I'll go with Aaron Jones, specifically because of the points per first down, right? Like when he's in there, he is the straw that stirs the drink for the Packers. So assuming that he goes, and you'll be able to know and potentially make the Hill switch. If not, I'm going with Aaron Jones here.
All right. We got Herms back in the chat saying, man, that last guest was phenomenal. What a guy. Right? Absolutely. All right, here we go.
You guys aren't supposed to put the closer on first before the main act comes on. The crowd's too warm now.
I think they'll be just fine here, Chuck. Here we got one from Jeff. Sup, guys? Have a week 3 flex question for you in a PPR league. Pick one: Gus Edwards, Josh Kelly, Jaylen Warren, KJ Osborne. I'll say this, boys. Jaylen Warren is my RB start of the week. I think he's going to have a lot of opportunity here against Las Vegas. I know I've gone full heel on this one. He looks so much better than Najee on Monday night. He just looks explosive. And I think this might be a little bit of a shootout actually here in Pittsburgh because both these secondaries are dog shit. So I think we could see some Jaylen Warren. I think Gus is the safest play, but I think Warren has the most upside here. So it's depending what you need there from me. I'm not going near Joshua Kelly. I know it's a better matchup this week, but I took my stance last week, and I'm going to be in take lock this week for that one. Eric, yourself on this.
I took the exact same stance on Joshua Kelly last week, and it paid dividends. And now I am willing to completely heel turn and go the other direction.
Oh yeah,
you bastard!
Do it.
I'll align with your analysis. I think Gus Edwards is probably the safest pick here, and is probably the direction that I will recommend somebody to go. But specifically in the DFS world, where upwards of like 40% of players just got their ass slapped by rostering Josh Kelly, he's going to be like sub 5% rostered against one of the most favorable defensive fronts in the Minnesota Vikings this week. And he is the only guy that is going to get work out of that backfield, right? So, that opportunity share is elite. The matchup increase, is an even bigger plus for him. So Gus Edwards is probably the steadier recommendation but I'm firing up a ton of Josh Kelly in DFS.
Mr. Bass, what about yourself? We have news here from Mr. Scampers, R. Ian Rappaport, some would call him. OBJ and Justice Hill just
Ooh.
listed as out. How you feeling now
Wowzers.
about Mr. Gus Edwards?
You guys forced me to do this. I'm going KJ Osborne.
Holy
and
shit.
I can't believe it. Words I never thought would be uttered from this mouth. And it's really, this is just the game of the week. This is Chargers Vikings. The Chargers have been getting, look, if Treylon Burks is dropping 70 yarders on you, you bet that I'm firing up some wide receivers from this Vikings offense. And this is really just because the running backs have been punching me in the stomach left and right. I agree with you guys full send on Gus Edwards being the best of the three running backs safe of the three running backs. People are going to look at what DeAndre Swift did last week with that Eagles line and be like, oh, Joshua Kelly is a smash play against the Vikings. No way, man. They cannot run block. I'm telling you, it's going to be a struggle. So fire up your KJs and just have a good time.
Well, Jeff, I apologize over there, but I don't think we all gave you a different answer pretty much. So
whoever sold it the best.
Yeah, you take your pick there. Look like we got a little Wyatt that just popped in here.
No.
What's up, IBT fam? And Sir Bass of Chuck.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Chuck,
Yes.
so welcome to Sure Thing Sleepers of the Week. We are looking for 10 PPR points from either a running back or a receiver ranked outside the top 30, or a quarterback or tight end ranked outside the top 15 that you think can fit inside the top 15. So what do you have for us, man? I will say, we're fucking heating up. We're fucking heating up over here. We had Josh Reynolds last week. Eric hit Rashid Shaheed. So where are you sending us with your inaugural Sure Thing Sleeper of the Week?
This is definitely the adult podcast because you're letting it fly today, and I'm absolutely all about it on this Friday. I love it. And I want you guys to know that I'm an honest guest, all right? I do not cheat. There are plenty of players outside the top 40 at running back and wide receiver that I could have cheated with. Jamar Chase, A.J. Brown, Josh Jacobs, Najee Harris. I'm not like that. This isn't the Garden of Eden. I'm not a serpent. There are guys that toe the line like Miles Sanders, Cortland Sutton, who have good matchups. But we're going for deep tracks today. The state of Florida is about to have the first tank battle on domestic soil in American history. And it's time for all of us to pick a side. And I'm going with the darling of the fantasy football community, Tank Dell.
Hell yeah. Dude, I love the play. I might have also have a sleeper from the same team. So I totally get the appeal though here. CJ Stroud, 4th most passing attempts on the season right now. And I feel like the Texans have decided, hey, if we're going to fucking lose, we're going to lose in style and make it an exciting brand of football. So is that pretty much why you're leaning Tank Dells? You just think there's going to be a lot of garbage time here for him down in Jacksonville?
Yeah, this is what I was laughing about when you guys were just talking about this with Herms about this matchup. There's a lot of things to like about this one in particular. So he's got a firm grip on the slot roll. He's running almost 60% clip out of the slot. We've had 2 games of Nico Collins dominating, but he's only played 5 more snaps overall than Tank. So he's right there with him. I don't need to wax poetic about CJ Stroud and how poised he's looked over 2 games, but the Texans have led the league in garbage time play. So I don't see why that wouldn't continue. That's really what the play here is, garbage time. The Jags have been getting a bath from slot wide receivers over the first 2 games between how the Colts used Michael Pittman and Sky Moore last week, which is like, wow, I can't even, another sentence I never thought that I would say.
Yeah.
And this is really also just like a huge get right game for the Jaguars offense, who I think has been buttoned up for a couple games. And there's no better defense right now to do that against than this Texans back 7. So you combine that with, the Texans' inability to run the ball. And I think another 10 targets and God knows how many yards for the Tank over this weekend.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll take your Tank Dell and I will raise it to my Robert Woods here.
No,
I get
what you went with. Fuck.
I get the appeal of Tank Dell, but I want the guy who's leading the team in red zone targets. Oh, that's Robert Woods, 3, baby. I want the guy who's still running the most snaps, 24 more than the next receiver on this offense. It's Bobby Trees, baby. 2nd most in targets to Nico Collins. And like you, I'm expecting a huge day in garbage time here I like all the Texans wide receivers. I know that sounds crazy, but I would start all 3 of them this week. The number 2 and 3 cornerbacks for the Texans, Stingley, how do you say that first name? Tavarier Thomas. Yeah.
Let's
Okay.
crowdsource that. Can we get a pronunciation from the chat?
Yeah. Taveriere. We're gonna go Taveriere, Thomas. They are doubtful, and Jalen Petrie also questionable as well. So, Eric, I just think your secondary is about to get roasted. Trevor Lawrence is pissed off about losing last week when he could have won if Zay Jones would have got a fucking foot in bounds. So I'm all over the Texans.
2 times.
I'm all over Bobby Trees as well. Your thoughts on our calls on the Texans wide receivers not named Nico Collins?
Yeah, I mean, I'll add Nico Collins to the mix. I think all three of them should be in play and are worthy of being rostered in week 3. You know that the 2 misses to Zay Jones on the end zone are just part of the story, right? Jacksonville essentially had 4 passing touchdowns last week that just narrowly didn't get completed. Foot didn't get out, didn't hold on to it, whatever it was, right? So if even half of those convert the other way, we're looking at some major garbage time for the Texans to make up for. And specifically, it kind of goes underreported. No Brown was put on the IR, right? So that was really the point where Tank Dell stepped into that starting slot role. That is very much so his. And while you guys picked different players, they're not really competing with each other for playing time, right? Like they are both going to be out here for the vast majority of snaps in a game where CJ Stroud is probably going to push for 40-plus pass attempts again. You know, this Jacksonville secondary has been exposed through 2 weeks. You know, they'll probably make a few adjustments, but ultimately I think we're going to see the points really rack up, and specifically that's going to come through the air for the Texans.
Mr. Scamper's in the chat saying, Eric, you must take John Mechie. I don't think we want to go that deep here.
This is like the Houston bottle service wars is what this feels like right now. If you guys saw that, that's how I feel like this podcast is.
We got Wyatt in the chat saying it's pronounced Taveriere Thomas. Still can't say it.
That's
Still,
great help, Wyatt. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it. He's saying that he's going to get burned by Texans wide receivers this week. All right, Eric, the floor is yours, my friend. Who is your sure thing sleeper of the week? Is it John Mechie? Is it Dalton Schultz? Are we staying in this game or are we venturing away?
Yeah, so late round draft pick by the Texans, Xavier Hutchinson. No, I'm going to go to a nasty situation, and that is the Cleveland Browns passing game. I'm going to go with Elijah Moore.
My backup choice. Let's go.
Yes. All right. This is why me and Chuck ended up so close in last week's QB league matchup, because we're in lockstep. Elijah Moore is on the field a ton for the Cleveland Browns. You know, the talk over the course of the offseason was that their intention was to really lean on the passing game and Deshaun Watson. Obviously, we haven't seen that play out so well through 2 weeks, but now with Nick Chubb on IR and no longer, you know, that steady force, that stabilizing force in the backfield, I think we actually will see them throw at a considerably greater clip this week. And the matchup against Tennessee is ideal. They've allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to wide receivers lining up in the slot on the young season. That is very much so Elijah Moore's role in this offense. And lining up in that slot, he's probably going to see a pretty fair amount of Sean Murphy-Bunting, the player that gave up 8 receptions for 2 touchdowns and 111 yards last week alone. Obviously, that was to Keenan Allen. So I'm not saying that Elijah Moore is Keenan Allen, but he plays a very similar role, and I like this to be one of his ceiling weeks and for him to get past that 10-point threshold.
God, I fucking hate Elijah Moore. I'm going to be honest. I've always been strongly off him, but he carved up
Double
the Steelers
style.
last week. He got us a couple times last week for a couple of crucial first downs. Luckily, TJ Watt cleaned that game up. Your thoughts on Elijah Moore, Chuck, because it seems like you're all in it as well.
I love it, and he laid out the case beautifully. So I'll put on some little amuse-bouche appetizers, a little between course stuff. I think he's the only player on that team that looks explosive. And I know that's a very weird thing to say because they do have some talent. But, I mean, Deshaun Watson is really struggling to throw wide receivers open. Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones are really just these big body types, making contested catches the way they're using him. And they lose Nick Chubb. I mean, they're going to have to retool what this offense looks like a little bit, and they have the pieces to do it. So I like, that's usually where opportunities lie in fantasy, and when offenses start to sort of unlock themselves with guys that are either on the wire or on the bench or something like that, and they elevate themselves to, being greater than the sum of their parts. And you're right. This matchup in particular is an excellent, excellent opportunity for him to do so.
Okay. All right. We got a couple more questions here in the chat, and then we'll get everyone out of here. Carlin saying Knox is no longer questionable. Looks like Knox is going to be ready to go here. Eric, how do you feel about that tight end question we had earlier? Dalton Kincaid, Taysom Hill, Jake Ferguson.
I'll probably switch over to Taysom Hill if Dawson Knox is not out there.
Agreed.
Look, Knox and Kincaid are on the field a fair amount together, but those little incremental upticks in volume are meaningful at such a low floor, low ceiling position like tight end.
Yeah.
And with Ferguson specifically, I mean, he's off to a pretty strong start, but he's not on the field a ton, right? So he's making a lot of minimal opportunities, and usually that's the case where you see things kind of start to regress back to the mean. So wouldn't be surprised if we see him put up a couple of stinkers in short order.
Mm-hmm. And then, Chuck, we have a question here from Carlin saying, do you think Cousins can have a big enough day to outperform Hurts? Listen, man, it's a great matchup for Kirk Cousins against the Chargers, but
yeah,
it's always so hard to bet against Jalen Hurts and what he can do. Even though the Buccaneers defense has looked okay at times, they haven't really played anyone on the offensive side of the ball. So I'm going with Hurts here. There's no way that I would take Kirk over him.
I sadly completely agree. I was really surprised last week because this Buccaneers defense under Todd Bowles has been hammered by rushing quarterbacks, and they were able to hold Justin Fields to 3 yards last week in a game that, wasn't completely out of hand at any point in time.
Right.
I think Jalen Hurts and a real adult, mature offense is going to kind of get back to exposing, an older, a little bit slower front seven. It's really dangerous, but the big plays come from being able to avoid that danger and then extending the play and then just crushing the ball downfield. And our secondary is extremely banged up. So this will be, it's weird to think of a get right team for a team that's 2-0, but we really haven't seen the Philadelphia offense explode like we all expected it to. So I think this is probably the game for that to happen.
Eric, a question from over here on Twitch. James Conner, Alexander Madison this week. I can't remember if it was you or Herms that liked Madison this week, but I know one of you fuckers liked him. So are you backing him once again here?
It was me. Hi, I'm the problem. I'll go with Alexander Madison here. This is going to be his swan song in terms of being viable for fantasy managers. Not that I think Cam Akers is going to come in and really do much of anything there, but like I said before, all that Alexander Madison has to offer is his opportunity share, and that is about to get chipped away.
Okay. I know we have to have Chuck back because he started singing on the show, and I think I'm the only one who has ever sung on this show, and I never get any background help. So Chuck, you'll definitely be invited back. I think this one, guys, slam dunk, flex Kyren Williams over Jordan Addison this week. Use him while you got him. Use that gift that you got in Kyren Williams. And then just a random kid saying, hello, should I trade Zay Jones, Amari Cooper, and Justin Fields for Chase? He's really asking for a lot currently, but I don't know if it's a good trade or not. I think I'm making that trade. I depending who your QB2 is, if you don't have a quarterback 2, is there a Geno on the waiver wire? Is there a Jared Goff on the waiver wire? If so, I'm hands down making this trade, guys. Chuck, your thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree. Zay Jones and Amari Cooper don't even really exist in my world, even though they are assets. So basically, I look at this like you're trading Justin Fields for Jamar Chase, and we know what we're getting out of Jamar Chase for the next 8 years if he's healthy. The Justin Fields situation, while there is a reason to be optimistic from what he does for fantasy, there's just so much uncertainty for this year, the year after, and so on and so forth. There could be a situation where he's not even playing in the near future. So smash this.
Okay. Eric, last one here for us from Alec. Hey, guys, 2 questions. Should I replace Miles Sanders or Madison with Jerome Ford? Also start Lockett or Amari Cooper? Man, that's a really tough one because Jerome Ford has a really, really tough matchup in the Titans. They've been a top 3 defense against the position for the last 2 years already and this season. So I think I am kind of scared of him a little bit. Your thoughts here on this one?
Yes, I am also very scared in my feelings. I like I said before, I think this is Jerome Ford's backfield, but Jerome Ford is not Nick Chubb, and his debut as the starter is against maybe the most difficult defensive front to run against.
Brutal.
So there are just too many things working against him. I've already made the case for Madison. He would probably be he's probably the fringier of the two that you're considering sitting. And I'll go with Lockett here, right? You know, Amari Cooper gets a lot of the benefit of the matchup that I talked about with Elijah Moore, but he's not used in the same way. And basically, for me, anytime that CJ Henderson is starting at cornerback, I'm going to continue attacking that. I did that while he was in Jacksonville. He's now the starting corner for Carolina with JC Horn on IR. So that means big things for all Seattle wide receivers, including Tyler Lockett this week.
Absolutely.
I think first time ever we got a question on here. What's popping, y'all? Would you rather start Mike or rather have Mike Evans or Kupp? I don't know. Maybe he didn't know Kupp was out this week. But either way, guys, can't thank everyone in the chat for supporting us so much over here on YouTube. If you guys are new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Come back, hang out with us again. We like to have fun over here, help you guys win championships and cash along the way. But Chuck, I know you're doing the same type of thing, with bringing good vibes, good fantasy advice to people here this season. So tell us how we can best support you, our friend.
Oh, let's see here. Interact with all of my tweets so I can get that sweet, sweet ad revenue money from Elon. That would be great. That's always cool. But in reality, so I host the This Guy Sucks podcast, available on, Spotify, Apple, all that jazz. I just do a weekly award show where I kind of just roast everybody and anybody that hurt us, because they hurt us and we all know it. And we all need, it's very cathartic. And it'll show you that somebody out there is struggling with this much more than you are. So it's maybe even a little bit more confidence boosting, morale boosting, all the good stuff.
Awesome, man. Well, guys, make sure you go over there, support Chuck and everything he's doing. Open up a new tab online right now. Go over to Twitter, follow him at Chuck Bass FF. You can find me at _Seth FF and Eric at Fantasy Nav. And check out the site too, guys. We got a bunch of good content between there and our YouTube coming out right now. It's a busy time, but we love it and wouldn't have it any other way. And good luck in week number 3 of the fantasy football season. We'll see you on Tuesday to react to all the madness. Until then, you know what to do. Keep it in between.